Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Here's the deal. Let's just start here, I suppose. The regular DNC convention kicks off this week. It's most assuredly going to be total chaos. At least that's the storyline that they're feeding everybody right now. It's certainly going to be chaotic from a standpoint of the kinds of people that are going to be speaking at the convention. Within the actual building itself and the people speaking in the convention, it's going to be one criminal after another, and everybody's going to basically be trying to out-gay one another. It's just going to be a giant gay competition. I'm gayer than you are. No, I'm more of a communist than you are. No, I'm gayer. And it's just going to be one ridiculous speech after another. Again, they have no policy. They have no policy of freedom. We know that. They have no policy of any kind of human rights of any kind. We're well aware of that too. But regardless of the criminals that are going to be speaking at the actual convention itself, what's going to be taking place on the outside of the convention is equally as interesting. And this is a multi-dimensional aspect of this, I think, that clearly some have looked into and some are paying attention to, and I'm sure that you're well aware of how this operates also. But there, of course, are many who are not aware. And I find this, again, to be continuously interesting because these people who aren't talking about this are exposing themselves. So again, basically as a quick refresher course, let's just go back to when it was the springtime and there were endless protests on college campuses, okay? They all claimed to be, of course, anti-Israel. Many of them were, waving Palestinian flags and a number of other things. But what we also know is that the people pulling the puppet strings are Jews themselves. And we also know that there are endless Jews who are inside of these so-called Palestinian groups who are dressed up like so-called Palestinians. They're waving the flag, they're wearing the scarf, they're holding the sign, they're covering their faces, they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. But it's obvious that these individuals are in fact Jewish. So in the media, of course, certainly in the left-wing media and even in the right-wing media, this right here is, again, where they all align. They all get on the same side when it comes to being pro-Jewish and being pro-Israel, which is a huge mistake and a giant trap. And this, of course, is something that's been brought up on the show with regularity, and it's something, again, that's continuously coming out here, all of these lies that are being perpetuated and falsely believed and a number of other things. But the left-wing and the right-wing media in unison are all saying that these protesters are anti-Israel. That can't possibly be true. A great deal of them are, sure. There's no doubt about it. A lot of them are anti-Zionist, a lot of them are anti-Netanyahu, but at the exact same time, many of them are pro-Israel and pro-Netanyahu. And what they're doing is they've infiltrated these groups, again, to stir things up, to get things amped up. Now, this should also show you how stupid the left is. They're so dumb that they fall for this trick every single time. That all you have to do is throw a firecracker right in the middle of one of those crowds and all hell breaks loose. All you have to do is throw a swing and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. They've allegedly already stacked up bricks there that have already been retrieved and confiscated by local law enforcement. There are certain roads that are being closed down, others are not. But all of this back and forth has to be focused in on because, again, it's who's pulling the puppet strings. You didn't see this outside of the RNC convention. I mean, look, the RNC convention was as cringe as everybody thought it would be for a variety of reasons. You had Harmeet Dillon, of course, giving her ridiculous speech and her ridiculous chant and prayer and whatever else. You had Kid Rock making an ass of himself. There were a number of things that were going on there that were absolutely outrageous. But at the exact same time, on the outside of the convention, you had maybe 5 or 6 whack jobs, all just sort of standing there with their ridiculous signs, wearing next to no clothes, looking like crazy people, because they are. But that's not going to be the case here. Again, this is all a giant social engineering manipulative trick. And there isn't anything that the left can do because the left are slaves to the Jewish lobby just like the right side is. It's no different. Again, the actual documentary itself, The Lobby, proves this. That 3+ hour documentary over the course of, I think it was 3 parts, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 parts, every single part of those should have proven to people that they manipulate both sides, that the Jewish lobby controls, funds, infiltrates, and manipulates both sides. That's why they are the enemy. Now, both sides are the enemy by themselves individually because they're both morally bankrupt, and most of us know that. But the individuals keeping them that way and keeping them from actually telling the truth regarding anything, that's the much larger problem here. So, with all of that aside, just for a second, let me get into this. AJ Gochik sent me this, and he said that this was from a friend of his, specifically regarding a lawsuit apparently that was brought either on the city of Chicago itself or the DNC convention itself, and it had to do with all of the different objects that are being banned from being able to be brought into this convention. So here's what he said. He said, quote, "Sean, sounds like the DNC convention is going to be a doozy. Excerpt from a recent opinion by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals." And then he said, "I think plaintiffs have a valid argument on the pointed objects, quote-unquote, ban." It said the following: "The Democrat National Convention will be held in Chicago from August 19th through August 22nd, 2024. Both the Chicago Police Department and the Secret Service have roles in protecting the persons attending the convention, or close to its venues, rather, which, by the way, many of the buildings have already boarded up their businesses because they're afraid of the vandalism that's going to take place." Let's see here. It says they have established security perimeters and issued lists of items that people will not be permitted to possess inside the perimeters. It says the city's list, enacted as part of an ordinance, comprises the following: laptops, tripods, monopods, selfie sticks. If an invited guest arrives with a tablet, they will be redirected to the X-ray line for screening and then permitted entry with the tablet. Large bags and suitcases exceeding size restrictions of 18 inches by 13 inches by 7 inches. It says sealed packages, drones and other unmanned or aircraft systems, animals other than service or guide dogs, bicycles, scooters, folding chairs, balloons, coolers, glass, thermal, or metal containers, umbrellas with metal tips, any pointed objects including knives of any kind, aerosols, tobacco products, e-cigarettes, lighters, matches, firearms, ammunition, fireworks, laser pointers, stun guns, tasers, mace, pepper spray, toy weapons, tents and structures, any other items determined by Chicago Superintendent of Police in consultation with the United States Secret Service and Chicago Office of Emergency Management and Communications to be potential safety hazards. It says this about the Secret Service. It says they have their own list, which appears on the city's website. Aerosols, ammunition, animals other than a service or guide dog animals, or guide animals, backpacks and bags exceeding size restrictions, balloons, bicycles, coolers, drones and other unmanned aircraft systems, explosives, firearms, glass, thermal, or metal containers, laser pointers, mace, pepper spray packages, signs exceeding size restrictions of 20 feet by 3 feet by 1/4 of an inch, structures, it says, supports for signs and placards, toy guns, weapons of any kind, and any other items determined to be potential safety hazard. It said the 3 plaintiffs in the suit who assert that they plan to participate in marches or protests at or near the convention contend that the city's list is unconstitutionally vague. The district court denied plaintiffs' request for a preliminary injunction and they appeal. Plaintiffs are particularly exercised by the reference to pointed objects, quote-unquote, in Chicago's list. What about ballpoint pens, they ask? What about the buttons and badges that are ubiquitous at political conventions and protest marches, and which often are secured with safety pins? Are they really going to be stripped of writing tools anywhere near the convention, or worse, arrested for the temerity of wearing buttons bearing political slogans? And he said that the plaintiffs lost their case. So this is interesting because clearly they can't keep all of that out or away. And the moment it shows up, it begs the question again, how many police officers, local, state, National Guard, whomever, are you going to keep away or even arrest as a result of having some of these? So again, it's hard to pin this down as to whether or not this is all a giant show of force. Again, it's clearly designed for potential chaos. Like AJ said, they have a point regarding ballpoint pens and the actual convention pins that people wear on their vests or coats or what have you. I don't see them enforcing all of that. We know that police officers are likely to use discretion when it comes to all of this. It'll be interesting. One way or another, it's all going to be interesting. I think the overall point that I want to make regarding the convention is this. There are multi-layers of deception and multi-layers of the enemy that exist in all of this. Some are on the right, we know that. Plenty are on the right. There's the Patrick Bet-Davids, there's the Joe Rogans, there's all these individuals who, again, are lying through their teeth about this, that, and the other. They're showing their hands right now, if you're listening carefully. These individuals are being called out to their faces regarding their stances on particular things and just saying that certain things happen when in fact they don't, and they're getting caught right now as being remarkably weak. And at the exact same time, there's plenty on the left that exist. And then, of course, there's the puppet masters who are controlling all of this, which happens to be the Jewish lobby and anybody who seeks to profit or is rubbing their hands in an effort to profit from any of this chaos. Everybody's hedging their bets in one way or another. Stocks are being traded, a number of different things are happening right now, and lots of people are just trying to make money off of the chaos. And of course, the media is all in a buzz about the entire thing because they're in it for the money too, and then of course, who controls them? So that's basically all I can say on the DNC convention right now, given the fact that it hasn't taken place quite yet. But again, the very list of speakers on the inside of the building, it's just going to be a giant who's gayer contest. Who's the bigger criminal? And it really is going to be gross. I mean, you're going to have trannies up there. You're going to have stupid celebrities that nobody cares about. It's just going to be beyond predictable. Again, the very fact that these conventions take place in this day and age, I think should show people that there are plenty who are still brainwashed into the convention aspect of the entire thing. And they don't understand all of the multiple parts that are moving behind the scenes and, of course, on different dimensions. There, of course, is plenty of talk of Kamala Harris even being replaced during the convention, that all of this is a setup job. That's quite possible, but at the exact same time, I think just time will tell. You know, it's not working out for her and Tim Walz as far as anybody's concerned. I mean, it's embarrassing. But you're also seeing what happens when you turn the lights on. All the cockroaches come out from underneath the shelves and underneath the couches and underneath the furniture, and they all start scurrying around and running around, and they're all defending her and attempting to defend her. You can't defend somebody like that. I mean, you can't defend these people. They're defenseless. They're open liars. They're pathological liars with everything that they do. And again, endless anons are bringing up old footage of Kamala Harris saying some of the most heinous things that you can possibly imagine. But again, it's not just the left. I mean, that stuff exists on the right too. But again, when it comes to the Jewish lobby and the infiltration of all of this, they're the ones that are unfortunately are profiting from all of this. And they're the ones that have to be shut down because they're clearly the ones controlling both sides. If they can get people on the right to sympathize with people on the left and people on the left to hate the people on the right and or sympathize with them from time to time, that's the definition of manipulation. And people have got to wake up to that. They just have to. Candace Owens is a perfect example, actually, and I'll give her some credit on this. Candace Owens is waking up more and more by the day regarding the Jewish lobby and the infiltration of all of this. It's taken her a very long time. I mean, she used to work for them. She used to work for the enemy, and who knows, maybe she still does to some extent. But she's saying plenty. And now she's starting to say the same things that I've said on this show for a very long time, that endless others have said on their shows, albeit, in the alternative media, so to speak, but certainly in the truth-telling non-bought-off media that if you don't call out who the real enemy is and you don't identify them, you're kicking the can down the road. And this is going to get worse with time. So finally, she's calling them out. Good. She should. And again, everybody should, regardless of who says it or doesn't say it. And everybody should call them out and call out who the real enemy is, even when they're being complimented, because they don't deserve to be complimented. That leads me to two comments here that Donald Trump made. Now, again, I'm not going to be able to even begin to understand the depth of the multi-dimensional warfare that's taking place here. I have no doubt, again, that the entire Q operation was a positive operation to psychologically reprogram good people who wanted to wake up and learn about the real world that we live in. I'm not going to disparage that movement because it's too important. It's too valuable. There were too many moving parts in all of those posts, and it was just too educational and too monumental. It got us to where we are now, which is a far better place than where we were. That's undeniable. So again, I've been over it before, but anybody making comparisons to Operation Trust or making other comparisons and saying it's a giant Jewish trick, that's not true. It's beyond not true. Because again, look where the focus is right now. Look where a lot of people are turning their attention. They're turning it on Israel. They're turning it on, again, the satanic Jews. This is not a bad thing. This is a very good thing. When people understand the depth of this evil, you can't look away and you can't ignore it. So with that said, however, there's this entire aspect, of course, and it happens every political year and it happens all of the time, and it's super disgusting, and I don't like it any better than anybody else. But Donald Trump gave a speech, I believe at Mar-a-Lago, or one of his golf clubs, if I'm not mistaken. And he's on stage, and he's got the American flag behind him, and he's got the Israel flag behind him. And Miriam Adelson is on stage, and a number of other people, or at the very least they're there, and they're listening to him talk, and the room is primarily filled with Jews. At the exact same time, he compliments Miriam Adelson for giving him $100 million for his campaign, which, let's face it, he doesn't need it. But I'll get into that here in just a second. But I want to play his comments here because I quite literally spent, I'd say, the majority of an entire day thinking about this and what this actually means. At face value, it's remarkably disrespectful, I think, to American soldiers and individuals who have been hurt and or killed in battle in an effort to save their fellow Americans or save someone else from enemy fire, so to speak. But I'm going to play this audio here, and you can hear it for yourself, and then, again, I'll just try to do my best to break it down on the other end. But I found it to be a very odd comment. Very strange. It was off the cuff. He wasn't reading this. But it sounded remarkably disrespectful to soldiers, whether or not the soldiers themselves have been given the Congressional Medal of Honor. And again, it's almost irrelevant. You're basically equating these two separate awards or medals as being the same, which is exactly what he says. So again, this is only 30 seconds long or so, but give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
I have to say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. It's right. And they're rated equal.
Again, he's apparently at face value trying to equate those two medals, which you can't equate them. They are not the same, not by any stretch of the imagination. Again, the Medal of Honor is remarkably important, but as we all know, endless individuals could win the Medal of Honor and never do. Lots of people's life-saving deeds go unaccounted for and unrecognized on the field of battle, which unfortunately is all fought for the Zogbot, and we all know that, and the entire lobby themselves, which is remarkably unfortunate and has cost an untold amount of lives. However, in making that one comment, whether it was a slip of the tongue, intentional or not, he's equating the Medal of Honor to the same kinds of people who receive the Congressional Medal of Freedom, like Ellen DeGeneres, and Tom Hanks, and Meryl Streep, and Oprah Winfrey, and Martha Stewart, and these other losers. So, no, the two awards are not the same by a long stretch. But again, I thought about, okay, what does he actually mean by this? I mean, is this a face value, one dimension look at this, or is there more to it? And to be honest, I'm just bouncing back and forth and I just don't know. It seems odd to me. It seems remarkably disrespectful, and I'm basically just kind of sitting on that particular wavelength of thought regarding it. It seems bad. It seems like what he said was in bad taste. Now, again, he's not a spring chicken. He's an older guy. You know, I don't know what he was thinking, but either way, he made the comments, and I think that they're tasteless. Now, getting back to the $100 million aspect, he doesn't need the $100 million in order to fund some campaign. Like we all know, in a legal setting, in a fair election, he has it wrapped up. And again, everybody knows this, but I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. But I'm not voting for the guy. I'm voting for the potential for freedom. I'm voting for our ability to continue to do good things and prosper in a positive direction, hopefully. That may be a pipe dream in the long run. It very well could be. Time will tell. But either way, that's the way that it is. And again, I don't like his stances on a number of things, and I don't like some of the things that he says publicly clearly. Again, like saying he's going to kick, college campus students off of campus just because they claim to be quote-unquote anti-Semitic, which isn't even real. That's ridiculous. That's a violation of the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Either way, with all of that said, the $100 million is odd because Donald Trump is also suing a media conglomerate for $100 million. I want to say it's CBS. I could have that wrong. But either way, paying back Miriam Adelson $100 million will be relatively easy. So for the people out there saying, well, Miriam Adelson only gave him $100 million because he's owned by the Jews and, he's a Zogbot and he doesn't know what he's thinking. That's possible. I mean, it's also possible that in a lawsuit that he'll easily win because of either, again, defamation or slander or whatever it is that he's suing this news agency for, that if he wins, which he probably would in the long run, he can easily cut her a check back for it and say, okay, now we're even, go kick rocks. That's possible that could happen too. But you also have to look at it from this dimension also. How on earth does somebody like Donald Trump not know that the Jews are the problem? That these satanic individuals who are always grasping for power, prestige, influence, and sucking on everybody like the leeches that they are, how does he not know this? How is he unaware? If he's really been shot at, who partially allowed that to happen? Who was involved in that? Can we assume that Israel was probably involved in that? You can go all the way back to JFK. You can go all the way back as far as you want. Certainly World War II, World War I, etc., etc. But for people to say that he doesn't know who the bad guy is, I also think that's a bit short-sighted because you're talking about a guy who probably has a pretty good grasp of the art of war. And the idea of you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. This is, again, this has to be part of what's going on too. So my whole point is this. To numerous individuals regarding face value comments, I found those comments to be disrespectful to the soldiers who, again, have lost their lives, were given the Medal of Honor, posthumously, and those, again, who have had their faces blown off and given that award, and they would rather not have the award. They would just rather have their friends, their comrades, and their faces back intact. So again, such an off-the-cuff comment was disrespectful, and I think that's undeniable. On top of that, he also made this comment, which I thought was a bit strange also, and he was giving a speech on the economy, and he had a table next to him. This was on a separate occasion, but it was recent, last week if I'm not mistaken. He had a table next to him with grocery goods on them, and the point that he was making, I believe at Mar-a-Lago also, was that the prices of everything have gone up and this, that, and the other. Again, it's an off-the-cuff comment, but he was asked a question by a reporter, and then he started talking about illegal immigrants. And he says, we have to get the bad... I'm paraphrasing him now, but the audio clip is out there. He said, we have to get the bad ones out, but we need good ones to come in because of artificial intelligence. And I just shook my head, and I thought, well, what the hell does that mean? We have to... I mean, and then, of course, he sort of doubles down, and he says, well, we have to vet some of them. And we have to vet the individuals coming in so that we know that we're getting good people and not bad people. But at the exact same time, we have to still let people in because of artificial intelligence, but we have to go throughout the country and get the bad ones out. This is a next to impossible job. And it's a bit of a retraction and a bit of a role reversal here based on what he has said in the past. Now, you know my stance on this, and I think you might share it. We have to close our borders for a great deal of time, if not forever. I mean, he's openly saying again, he said in the same quick soundbite, he said, well, we need them for the farmers too. The farmers need them and the farmers want them, and we need to help out the farmers, and we need workers here because there aren't people working and we need workers here. Wait a minute. You have endless Americans who would love to work and would love to make a living wage. But look what's happening. Illegal immigration is crushing everything, and at the exact same time, you have the entire anti-white establishment violating our rights as white individuals and keeping us out of the workforce also. And this is a thing. This is a constant thing. Even the company Apple, the technology company, openly stated that they're looking for technicians and engineers and software people and so on and so on. But if you're a white male, don't apply. Because they say that they're accepting applications from blacks, Hispanics, women, Indians, Asians, blah, 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 blah. But not white people. So I don't understand the artificial intelligence comment. I don't get it. It confuses me. I don't like it. Because again, it's at face value and it seems odd and it seems bad. So this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on here. And as I've said before, and I'm not wavering on this by any stretch of the imagination, but we're going to have to physically see a real change here. We're going to have to see it. It can't just be words behind a microphone at a lectern. It's got to be something visible that we can see. Because what's tangible and what we can actually recognize is actually happening here in our society is that we're seeing more and more illegal aliens showing up, walking around, traveling from point A to point B. Businesses moving in, predominantly Indian businesses, and these smoke shops and 1,000 other things that are taking place. We're seeing all of this. We're seeing an increase in crime, an increase in illegal alien crime. Let me give you a quick local example. Just the other day, there was a guy who was killed driving home or driving from point A to point B, and he was hit head on in a collision with an illegal alien. Now, in the local free newspaper in the town where I live, they didn't say he was illegal, but the guy was Mexican, didn't have a driver's license, no insurance, driving an automobile while intoxicated. If that doesn't scream illegal alien to you, I don't know what does. And a guy is now dead as a result. And this guy is in jail with $250,000 or $500,000 bond available. No one's going to pay it, of course, so he'll stay there. He's in jail for vehicular homicide or manslaughter. But this is happening all over the world on a constant basis. You can't catch these kinds of people. You can't say, well, we're going to go from sea to shining sea and we're only going to get some of them out and we're only going to get the bad ones out and we promise, and we're going to vet all the other people and we're going to allow the other people to stay, but we're going to get all the bad people out. That's impossible. You have to get them all out. All of them. If you came here illegally, in particular back in 2020, or before or even after that, when Biden was allegedly in office, you have got to go. You have to set up a line from the state of Maine all the way to the northern point of Minnesota, and then you have to just draw a straight line right down to the tip of Florida and Key West with nothing but troops, and you've got to work from east to west and west to east and rally them all up and gather them all up. Again, we've got to see this. We have to physically see this. This will have to be something that is undeniable. It can't be some random news report on the evening news. Donald Trump's administration is rounding up more illegals and migrants, as they'll call them, and putting them in paddy wagons and taking them to God knows where. This has to be something that we all physically see, not on our TVs, but with our own eyeballs, out in society. To the point where you're driving to the grocery store and you see a paddy wagon with a line of illegals being thrown into it, knowing full well that those individuals are detained, cuffed, and being taken someplace. Because again, even to this day, you still have Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis sending illegals from the southern border up toward northern borders in northern states. That's human trafficking. They're a part of the problem too. But who owns both of those guys? You guessed it, the Jewish lobby. This is a big problem. It's a big, big problem, and it's a big, big deal. Again, self-governance is our way out of this. But for God's sakes, if we don't start to see in the future, certainly next year, immediately, an immediate physical change in our living environment and the people around us, we are in deep, deep trouble. Again, when it comes to illegal immigration, think of what Christine said from Canada in the last episode, when she was describing their culture in India. It's remarkably disgusting because the individuals who live there believe that they're better than everybody else. That picking up trash and doing the things that you do to keep a society civil and clean, they believe that that is beneath them. That they all have, again, servants, and that if they're not picking it up, then they think that they're important and better than everyone else. The other aspect of the Indians, of course, and the Indian population coming into America, and numerous stories have been written about this, including in the mainstream media, is that they will buy up property, specifically hotels and motels. They will live there while owning them, and then they will ship the money back to their family in India to then have their family show up in the United States on work visas, work within those hotels and motels as a family with one another, and then they buy up even more property as time goes on while all living with one another in close quarters and doing what they do. It's this familial buy-up and this familial collusion, so to speak, to take over property in the United States. And they're not just doing it in the US, of course. They're doing it in Canada. They're doing it lots of places. But if it's illegal, well, they have to go. If it's legal, it doesn't make it right necessarily because there's too many laws in the books as it is. But things have to change. Things have to change from a visual standpoint. The bioweapons, as we know, are not helping the cause. That should prove to people that it was even more of an intentional takeover of our country and other foreign countries. You decrease the population of the people who live naturally in their native-born countries, and then you flood them with Asians, Africans, and Middle Easterners. Because if they didn't take the shots and they're making the trip and they're not ill, and even if they are, it's not going to benefit us one bit. Certainly not from an electromagnetism standpoint. But either way, this is the takeover. This is the This is the great replacement. This is real. This is not fake. This has been very, very real. Again, I've highlighted the documentation on this show before. It exists on my website under the Government Documents tab. You can check it out, and it's frightening. But we have to see a reversal. We have to see something physically change here, and it can't be an overnight fix. This is something that's going to take a great deal of time. It can be swift, in particular if the individuals engaging in this proper retaking of our country are armed and pointing their guns in the right direction and not against us, but against illegals and actually detaining them. And of course, we are seeing this physically. That's going to convince a great deal of people that the right thing is happening. But it's all about the frequency, in my opinion. It just has to be something that we see with regularity over the course of time. It can't be a one and done kind of thing. Okay, there's that. Now let me mention this just very quickly. Again, it sort of highlights, it slides into education a little bit, but it highlights the disappointment of what happens when individuals are asleep and then they become victimized as a result of being asleep from government and the enemy, and then all of a sudden they find their courage along the way, or so they think. Of course, speaking too late is not courageous in any stretch of the imagination. If you're ahead of the curve and you speak out, I would consider those individuals to be far more courageous than someone like this. But here's what you end up having over at ESPN. I've brought up Kirk Herbstreit's name before. Kirk Herbstreit was making the rounds last week because he responded to a tweet having to do with a person who simply reached out to him on X and said, "What do you think about girls playing men's sports or men playing in girls' sports specifically?" And he said whatever he said, something like, "It's disgusting, it's ridiculous, and it shouldn't happen." I'm paraphrasing him. He was on a particular talk show, and I don't know if it's an Ohio-based talk show or not, but I'm going to play the audio of this so that you can hear him describing this. And basically what you're going to hear is it's basically him saying, I've been putting up with a lot of stuff for the last 4 years, and I've kept my mouth closed, and Lee Corso used to say, don't ever talk about race, religion, or politics, and don't ask me about those because I'm not going to talk about them, and blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff and all of that laziness, which is exactly what it is, and it's social engineering. It isn't new, and it's remarkably unfortunate because it's purposely designed by the lobby to keep us from talking about who the enemy is and to keep us from learning about who the enemy is and then speaking out against the enemy. And then, of course, people lose their jobs when they speak out about it, and it just shows that people are slaves to their jobs. Which, again, just makes them slaves. They're slaves to their jobs, and they're slaves to making an income. And, oh God, what'll happen if I lose my job? My whole world will fall apart and I'll cease to exist. When, in fact, that's not true. And I have more examples that will exemplify that point a little bit later with more audio from a school board speech, a school board meeting, rather, from a school district that I've brought up previously. But I want you to hear Kirk Herbstreit's 2 cents on this, because even Samantha Ponder, another ESPN NFL analyst, real brainbuster position there, but she lost her job just last week, I think, due to what ESPN calls budget cuts or, cutting back or whatever it may be. When in fact she spoke out about dudes playing in girls' sports very recently, also certainly with regard to the Olympic boxing charade that took place. So here's Kirk Herbstreit's rationalization for why he hasn't been more vocal on particular things. Not to mention, let's face it, if the only thing you're speaking out against is men playing in women's sports and how that's wrong, which clearly it is, if that's the only thing you're speaking out against, that's low-hanging fruit. That's the easiest low-hanging fruit to grasp onto. So here's Kirk Herbstreit's comments in 3, 2, 1.
Lee Corso used to give a speech, and one of the things he would say within that speech is he's like, don't ask me about race, religion, or politics, or don't talk publicly about race, religion, or politics. And now I think that's all anybody talks about is race, religion, or politics, And so I've tried to just, you and I've texted. I mean, I've tried to stay on the sidelines for a lot of that, but you can only take so much until you want to start to speak up a little bit, and actually say what you think. But when I retire or get in a position that you're in, I'll be able to say what I think a lot more.
Don't come on here and bullshit. You had to know that when you put that tweet out, there was going to be a reaction. Come on. You had to know.
I didn't give a shit, though. I don't really give a shit at all. Like, I'm done giving any shits at all about any of it. When it comes to, it's almost like there are two different sets of rules. And if you have a view that's a little bit more traditional, or, I'm a Christian guy, it's like there's a different set of rules for that viewpoint. And it's hard to just turn the other cheek time after time after time. So yeah, I didn't really care. And I don't care at all, which is a good thing. I think it's good and healthy to get to that place compared to, oh gosh, I don't want to get canceled. I don't want to get people upset. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to say certain things. My problem is I have a temper. And so if I get to that point, if that fuse gets lit, I let it go and then I'll explode and say something. So that I have to be careful of.
Just as a quick reminder, this is what happens when you sit on the sidelines or stand on the sidelines metaphorically in a war. See, Kirk Herbstreit doesn't know that there's a war going on, and he certainly isn't recognizing it, even though he himself and his entire family have been victimized by this war. Certainly from a medical standpoint. Kirk Herbstreit, 1 year after receiving his second COVID shot, was diagnosed with a pulmonary embolism and blood clotting in his lungs. It can't get more obvious that he's been the victim of the very thing that he could have spoken out about had he asked more questions, been more knowledgeable, less trusting, and a number of other things. Again, Kirk Herbstreit is beloved in the college football realm. He's the clean guy. He's Mr. Straight Tie, tells it like it is, professionalism, has a good time, blah, blah, blah. He's always been that way. That's what's made him successful. However, that doesn't equate to brains. Because now his son, Zach, who was an Ohio State tight end for Ohio State University, has a permanent heart condition. Again, brought on by the shots. It's not because he's athletic and it was an underlying issue. No. This is all shot related. This is what happens when you don't ask questions. This is what happens when you don't think. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you take the advice of Lee Corso. Don't ask me about important things like race, religion, and politics, because I'm not going to talk about it because I don't know anything about it. And I don't want to lose my job. And then, of course, at the very beginning, he makes the open admission that if he had this other guy's job with a microphone in front of his face who's allegedly retired and whatever, does this side audio show gig, that he'll have the freedom to say more about what he really thinks and what's really going on. You always had that freedom. You always have that freedom. And you're never supposed to give it up. Not ever. For anybody. But it's an open admission that he's a slave. If he and Sam Ponder and endless other people at ESPN back in 2020 and 2021 stood up to do the right thing and started openly saying the mask wearing is bullshit, I don't suggest anybody take any of these shots whatsoever. They could have all done that, and they could have all done it together. In fact, while they weren't doing that, and while they were holding their tongues and saying, well, I don't talk about race, religion, and politics, and this seems to happen to do with everything all at once, but I'm still not going to talk about it. While all of that was happening, they were watching their coworkers quitting because they didn't want to wear the mask and take the shots. So now what? Now it's a little late to get into the war. Now it's a little late to get into the battle. Because some of us have been on this battlefield for a very long time. People have been on the battlefield long before me. Long before you. But we're on the battlefield, and I understand that we're all on it at different lengths and depths of the actual field itself, metaphorically. But even so, he's late to the party. And he's been victimized by his own mentality and the false advice that he's received, which is keep your mouth closed and stick to the X's and O's and the first downs and the touchdowns. When you focus on nothing, you'll be victimized by everything. And he's living proof of that. And he's not alone. I mean, he isn't alone. A great deal of our population, even the world population, has that same mentality. You've heard me bring this up before, but that was something in college that we heard consistently, even among my little group of friends and acquaintances. It was, look, man, let's not talk about religion. Let's not talk about politics. Let's not argue. Let's not argue. That was all purposeful social engineering. It was not an accident that entire mentality of what we can and cannot talk about in the United States of America infiltrated the college setting, because everybody was just supposed to get along and let's not argue and let's not discuss. You don't have to argue, discuss, and even disagree with one another. All you have to do is converse politely like adults and learn together. But if you don't even want to do that, then you're purposefully dumbing yourself down and pacifying yourself, which is the exact opposite of what the Founding Fathers wanted for us and built this country for. So again, if the Samantha Ponders, and the Kirk Herbstreits and everybody else just back in the day, 4 years ago, just stood up for what they knew to be right, although they didn't know, which, again, is the real problem. But if they'd have just slowed down and thought a little bit about what's going on and is this right and is this not right, and we need to take a stance against this because, let's face it, ESPN can't fire everybody. If they're such a big sports network and endless people watch them and all these brainwashed goons still watch them, I mean, it's the same mentality in the school districts. It's the same kind of thing that I'm saying here. That if everybody just stood up and did the right thing and walked away, the attention would be on the real enemy. The attention would be on the real bad guys. But as long as it's hit and miss and people just sort of nitpicking particular issues and, oh, well, that person over there is more vocal than all these people over here, but that one person is the problem. The fact is the majority has to be vocal. Everybody needs to be vocal because everybody should stand up and say, wait a minute. We've been lied to time and time again about endless things, and the lying ends now, and us being downhill and downstream from all of that lying ends now. But when you don't do that out of the gate, you're going to get left behind. And unfortunately, that's why Kirk Herbstreit's been left behind. The Samantha Ponders are being left behind. And again, a lot of them now are trying to play the hero and trying to make it sound like, they're gonna now speak out and support me because now I'm going to speak out against things. You're late to the party. That's all. They're late to the party. They're so late that they've been victimized by it, like I said earlier. So, good luck to them. Wish them the best. Hope the poison doesn't kill them. But even so, you're late to the game here. And we're at war, and this is serious shit. So staying silent in war is not going to benefit you, the people around you, or society as a whole. And you would think that they'd know that by now, but, They're taking baby steps, and you can't take baby steps. It's like a machine gun. You don't shoot a machine gun like you shoot a sniper rifle. It's not one at a time. You lean on the trigger, you hold it in, and you let it rip. And if you're not ready for that level of action yet, metaphorically, certainly from a speech standpoint and letting people have it, well, you need to get in the game. And you need to start taking some verbal shots at people and standing up for what's right and what isn't. I haven't heard these individuals comment on the countless athletes dropping over, and they know some of them, and they're even related to some of them. But they're not bringing it up. Huge problem. So again, I'm not going to take advice from people like that. In fact, that audio clip should be a perfect lesson on what not to do. That right there is exactly what happens when you sit on your hands, when you shouldn't be. Okay. Education stuff, and there's plenty of it. There were at least 2 college athletes who died of the jabs. Or, I'm sorry, not college athletes. I think there were high school athletes who have died this summer. At least 2. Allegedly from the jabs. I say allegedly because, of course, the media is not going to mention it. But either way, with that aside here, I've got jab stuff for later, but I want to get into this, and this is a big deal. This is a huge deal, as a matter of fact. And I have audio to play also. Let me set this up first, just locally speaking. There's 2 Ohio school districts that I pay attention to with regularity, and they vary in size. One, of course, is close to where I live, in the town where I live, and it's a very small school district. And then there's another one in central Ohio, in Westerville, Ohio specifically, that is much larger. So, for example, the one where I live has 1 high school, and the one in Westerville, Ohio has 3. They're both insolvent, and they both want levies, and they're not going to get them, and it's a beautiful thing. But locally, you've heard me bring up the gay school board member by the name of David Bothus, who, again, I filed an ethics complaint against, and he paid himself back for Super Bowl tickets, which, of course, you can't do. And there's been at least 1 other ethics violation filed against him, again, having to do with covering the actions of his son and colluding with the district to cover for the violent actions of his son toward female students. Remarkably disgusting. As it turns out now, both he and his gay husband, who have allegedly had extra affairs with other individuals in town of the male persuasion, allegedly, that they are now attempting to have the school board remove the YouTube broadcasts of their school board meetings, including and or specifically the public comments section within the actual board meetings themselves. Allegedly. So, as you've heard me say before, these kinds of behaviors are only the behaviors that individuals engage in when they have something to hide. This is not what an innocent human being does. And of course, he's not innocent. So, there's that. Again, they already turn off the comment section underneath the videos themselves. They could turn them on if they wanted to, but they don't, because they're afraid of what people are going to say. And as you've heard me say also, in their board meetings, they're always attempting, certainly in the last one, they're attempting to push the public comments section to the end of the meetings themselves because they think that it's important for the public to see and hear all of the comments that all of the board members say, including the superintendent and treasurer, so that the public gets a full grasp of what it is that is really going on so that they can make a more well-informed comment, and blah, blah, blah. And of course, they're always doing this too, which you'll hear in this audio clip very quickly from Westerville in their latest board meeting, which was a doozy. But the board presidents openly state in the public comment section that make sure and keep your comments cordial and refrain from using foul language and keep your points directed at us in matters of a professional nature and items that are on the agenda and blah, blah, blah. They're basically limiting your free speech as a citizen of the United States in an open forum. And they're attempting to. But I'm not seeing people remind them of this. I'm not seeing people get up to the lectern and say, you don't get to violate my constitutional rights. I can come up here and sing a song for 5 straight minutes if I want to. You can't stop me. And that's the way that it is. Now, common sense would dictate that if you're going to show up to a school board meeting, you're going to say something regarding education rather than just singing a song or making an ass of yourself. But even so, you have the freedom to say whatever you'd like. So that's happening locally. Now, Westerville. Let me read this first, even though I'm going to get the chronology of this kind of backwards. Here's what I'll do actually first. Let me set this up. Okay, deep breath, because this board meeting was a doozy. The Westerville City Schools in Westerville, Ohio, are not only insolvent, as you've heard me bring up in the past, but even with the passage of a levy in November, which should not happen under any circumstances, they will still be at least $5 million in debt, if not more than that. Which is great, because really they're looking at a $10 million windfall. They're screwed. In the middle of all of this, they're always paying administrators. They're hiring more administrators. They have copious amounts of administrators that they don't need, along with endless useless programs that they don't need that they pay into and pay for, and then, of course, pay the people that run them. Nobody wastes money like an American K12 school district, and I mean nobody. They're notorious for it. And instead of making cuts, which is what they should do, and firing people, which is what they should do, what do? They go to the taxpayers for a levy to increase property taxes more so than they already are. Certainly during the economic times and intentional downfall of the stock market and prices and everything else that's taking place right now, including, again, specifically in Ohio with the tax increases on property among half of the counties in the state of Ohio. These individuals are foolish to go to the public to ask for more money. But they claim, of course, that that's the hard decision when in fact it isn't. That's the easiest thing that they can do. And you're going to hear from the public comments section a guy finally show up and tear into their finances. And he does it very smoothly. And he speaks twice in this board meeting. He speaks once regarding an agenda item, and then he speaks later toward the end during the basic public comments section. But as all of that's happening, there's another group of lesbians that get up, and they start to speak about a Christian group that the school approved to have elementary school students participate in for X amount of time every single week, where they get bused from their local elementary school and they go to a church or some other venue to receive basically Bible training or engage in discussions regarding the Bible. That particular group, if I'm not mistaken, is called LifeWise. Now, I don't know a ton about LifeWise, but either way, you have to keep in mind this is a public school environment that, based on the previous board's actions from years in the past, of which there were 2 pastors who sat on the board, they allowed this LifeWise group to come in and educate these students, allegedly. Which, again, at face value, I would say is 100% fine, and I don't have a problem with it. The problem now is you have a bunch of demonic atheist lesbians coming up to the lectern and screaming and shouting about how their kid has to go to LifeWise, and why is it that my kid has to go here, and so on and so on. So the large umbrella point is the left always eats its own tail. The liberal snake specifically always eats its own tail. And now in this school district, run by liberals, all women, you have people on the right and people on the left attacking them and saying, good luck with a levy. This happens every single time because you can never satisfy a lunatic leftist. They'll always find something to criticize a group of people for, even their own. They're the most non-committal, godless monsters that exist on the face of the planet. There's no way around it. Now, I'm going to play some of those comments and the audio that you can hear from those comments because it's golden. It's absolutely golden. And then there's a back and forth even between the guy who brings up the finances and one of the female board members who gets a little hot at him and angry at him because he's speaking the truth and she can't handle it, and she shows her complete irrational behavior in the midst of all of it. I'm going to play that too. But there was also this, and this came at the end of the public comments section. Their board member, Dr. Nancy Nestor Baker, who's been on the board for approximately 25 years, or over the course of 25 years on different occasions. She's resigning, effective immediately at the end of the month in their next board meeting, which is at the end of the month. She's also the same woman who a year ago was under investigation and under new investigation by the Ohio State Ethics Board for voting for her daughter to receive pay raises, as her daughter is an employee of the actual district itself and now is a elementary school principal. So remarkably unethical. But when you pile up all of the different things that exist in the pool of unethical behavior, that's certainly one of them. But based on the things that David Bothist has done in my town where I live, David Bothist should be off the board instantly also. He should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law also. So did this Nancy Nestor Baker gal resign as a result of her ethics violation and the Ethics Commission looking into it and a number of other things? It's possible. She said on the record that that was not the case, but she's being elbowed out because it looks bad, because it is bad. You made a terrible decision, and everybody on the board allowed you to do it because they didn't know that they couldn't do it either. So that should show everybody how stupid everybody is. But with all of that said now, let me get into the comments, because again, the public comments were amazing. The first guy you're going to hear, this is the guy who speaks directly to the board about their finances, the levy, and the decisions that they've made that have led them to where they are now. What this guy doesn't know is that the district's situation is far worse than what he's even detailing. Because as you've heard me say in the past, with state legislators knowing that they can make more money through school vouchers, religious, private, charter schools, etc., even home learning in the state of Ohio, that's going to collapse the public school system, which means the public school system is only going to be left for the physically handicapped and the mentally disabled. That's it. And unfortunately, it's getting to the point where even the individuals who are quote-unquote succeeding and getting great grades, they even are starting to look, of course, a little brainwashed, because let's face it, they are. But they're brainwashed because they're still going into these systems not knowing that they don't have to. Not knowing that they don't have to wake up at the butt crack of dawn, get dressed, throw on their pajamas, or just roll straight out of bed, get on a bus, and then go to an indoctrination center all day long. So now with all that aside, let me play his audio here, and it's a doozy. And again, here's what I'll do. I'll play his audio, and then I'll play the second half of his audio, which came later in the meeting. Because like I said, he shows up to the lectern twice, and it was beautiful. It was very well done. So give him a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Moving along to public comment, we do have one, Mr. Doug Krinsky. Just as a reminder, public comments are, you'll have 5 minutes to address the board. Please state the agenda item that you're referencing at the beginning of your comments. A timer will be shown on the screen, and Mr. Doran will call time when 5 minutes has elapsed. Please keep your comments professional. Avoid the use of inappropriate language and refrain from identifying individuals in the event of a complaint, and please address your comments to the board and not to the audience.
Okay, thank you. I'm talking about several different points on the agenda tonight. 5, the minutes that you just approved, as well as 8 that's coming afterwards for personnel. So let me just start with, I'm very concerned about many things going on in the district. I've lived in this district for over 30 years. So after this, I'll give you a public records request I'm making All emails received by everybody sitting up here since June 1st through today, as well as the 4 leaders of the unions in the district. On to the levy. The Ohio Department of Education website numbers for 2018, 2019 were 14,822 students in the district. As of last year, it was down to 14,231, a drop of 4%, 591 kids. By your website, the budgeted revenue from 2018 to 2019 was $186 million. Last year was $214 million, the highest ever, up 14%. The highest area of the revenue this year the highest area of revenue this year is from the real estate taxes area, $129 million. And you are now asking us for an additional $20.8 million, a 16% increase. In your projection for the 2023 to 2028, your personnel services employee salaries is going from $118 million to $159 million, up 34.7%. The last year, it only went up 3.6%. If that was maintained for 5 years, it'll only be 18%. So I don't understand why it's going up so much in your projection. Also, in retirement and benefits, they're going from 39,000 to 39 million to 62 million, up 57.7%. I don't understand that one either. It should be much less than that because last year was 1.6% up. Multiply that out, stays about 8%. So in voting to put up this levy, every board member talked about making the hard decision to ask for more money. I would say you made the easy decision. It's easy to ask for more money. It's the hard decision to say, tighten the belt, find cost savings, go down and advocate for additional funding from the State House and help the taxpayers. That would have been the hard decision. I've been to the State House to advocate for change. It's not easy, but it can be done. The Autism Scholarship is one of those examples. Instead, you took the easy way out. The last place you should be going to for money is the taxpayers, who have endured the highest interest rates, the highest inflation, the highest real estate reevaluation tax increases in decades. Your timing is impeccable, I have to say. The one thing taxpayers can do is control their school taxes. November 5th, we will. I would have thought you would have done one or more of the following, but you have done none of these yet. Offered early retirement programs, offered an internal incentive program for any employee that can think of a cost-saving measure, split the savings. Offered any cost-saving measures, reduced overall staff, reduced the number of buildings, down from 26. Enrollment is down 591 students. You can get rid of one building because on average there's only 547 students in a building. So you can sell one building, reduce costs. Transfer back the $30 million you just took out of the general operating funds. I hear you talk about all this money you need. You just gave away $30 million out of the general operating funds. I don't understand that at all. Ask the unions, like we did many years ago, for some support, some help on their contracts moving forward. I'm not saying eliminate their positions, but ask for their support. All that said, I do have a solution for your request. Revise the projections for the next 5 years. Keep them in line with where your salary and benefits were last year. 3.6%, 1.6%. On average, your contracts all read at 2.6%, 2.7% increases, plus minor dollars. But you know what? Stick to 3% and 2% salaries and benefits. Transfer back the $30 million into the general fund where we voted that money should be placed and used, not capital. So all the projections that you've done, I don't know where they came from, but they should be totally revised. Tax and spend is not a good approach. I encourage everyone to vote no on this levy coming up. And I have a handout for all of you. Thank you.
Thanks. You can just give it to Mr. Okay.
It was beautiful. First of all, at the end of his talk, he walks up and he hands all the papers to, I believe, the superintendent, who's this female insider. She's been there for quite some time as an assistant superintendent. Of course, they ran through one superintendent very quickly who wasn't even on the job for a couple of months before apparently he violated his contract. and a number of other things. And then he was gone, and then this woman has taken over permanently. So it's all women, okay? No offense. I'm just saying it's all women. They're all agreeable. Nobody disagrees with one another on that board. Everybody's, saying the exact same thing. And let's face it, these ladies are not that bright. That guy just tore them down brick by brick. He called their treasurer a liar in not so many words. Where are you getting these inflated numbers? All these inflated numbers of this increasing by 50% over the course of 8 years is preposterous. That's completely impossible. There's no way that can happen. You stretch it out, it's 8% tops. It's an 8% increase tops. So a lot of it is fear-mongering from the point of a treasurer because, again, they're trying to get everybody to vote for the thing that they want, which is more money. With that said, he dropped a statistic at the very beginning that was interesting, that the district has lost 4% of its student population. That's a big deal. It's a huge deal. You may remember the percentage 11%. That I brought that up on the show many years ago. But I said if any district loses 11% of their student population, they're finished. They've lost 4%. Well, for K12, they're a third of the way there, theoretically. So it's not good. But again, it was absolutely beautiful what he said, and he's 100% right. And he speaks for endless people who have their heads on straight. He didn't receive a round of applause because everybody in the room is dumber than him. He's smarter than everybody in the room. He just said the truth about what's going on regarding the money. Everybody else is there to talk about feelings, but he's there to talk about facts. Lays it on them, and they don't know what to do with it. It's perfect. Not to mention, it also brings up another behavior that's very common in school districts, which is they never ask other school districts, certainly outside school districts, what it is that they are doing to be successful financially. They never ask them. They never reach out to even unknown school districts and say, so how are your finances? And that school district says, well, our finances are fine. Our everything is balanced. Our books are balanced. We're in the black and everything is good. And they're of equal size, these two school districts, for example. But the one that is insolvent will never reach out to one that is not and say, what is it that you're doing to make you so successful? They don't do it that way because it's hubris. They're caught up in their own behavior. They're caught up in their own inflated egos and 1,000 other things, and they think that what they say goes and what they're doing is the way that it gets done. And that's just not true. Now, before I play the second half of his comments, which came later in the meeting, let me mention this also. Before his comments, there were presentations that were taking place in the board meeting that were beyond embarrassing. And as you've heard me say, this is the time of year, certainly before an election takes place, where these school districts want extra money, they want extra support, and they want to make it look like everybody's getting along and they're all on the same page, and look at all the games, gimmicks, and bullshit that we're engaging in because we're all in this together. And this is what a community looks like, and blah, blah, blah. They had an entire presentation from their sports, whatever it was. I don't know if it was an athletic director or whatever position she holds. Community sports director, something along those lines. And they had some field day activities that were taking place before school started. And school is already in session now. But it was approximately 60 students is all. And these would have been high school aged, maybe middle school and high school age students, where they all show up, they play in some giant field, they jump over pool noodles, they do shuttle runs, they get a free t-shirt. It's a complete waste of time. There's no way around it. But their parents, of course, are equally as brainwashed because they're probably saying to their kids, hey, if you want to play in a sport, you'd better go there to show your commitment, and this is what you need to do, and blah, blah, blah. So they gave this giant presentation on all of this, and then they basically started to ask for money. And they were like, hey, we need some more money. We need some funds. We need some help. It was embarrassing. Not to mention, you have to check the mindset of a kid to say, why are you going back to school early to engage in school-related activities before you have to? I mean, are you feeling okay? Do you have a fever? It's ridiculous, in my opinion. And then after that was another presentation having to do with English language learners, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the director of all of that. And she comes up to the lectern and she too asks for money. And not a small sum. She was going, well, our operating budget is about $1 million and we need $1 million. So what they're doing in these board meetings across the nation right now is they're all rolling out their programs to show the public that what they're doing is the greatest thing since sliced bread, so they think. And that we can't possibly exist as a school district if our programs don't exist. That if you cut our programs, all hell's going to break loose and you won't be successful academically, and the mental and emotional health of students will fail, and blah, blah, blah. This is what they do every single election year. It's a game plan. It's a playbook. And it's gaslighting, which is psychological abuse. So it's one bootlicker after the other coming up to the lectern going, my job is indispensable. Don't think about getting rid of me because I work hard here and we do good things and we are this school district and we are the best and everything else. It's beyond pathetic. I also have to mention this too very quickly. In the same school board meeting, they mentioned the unexpected death of one of their assistant custodians in one of their buildings. That he died suddenly, quote unquote. What from? Could it have been the shots and that entire shot lie and that biological weapon lie that you all believed? Probably. Because it's the second custodian that they've lost in the last 6 months, give or take. But they're not piecing any of this together. They're not figuring any of this out. So there was that. Now let me play the second half of his comments, which again came later in the meeting, and then you'll hear from the leftist whack jobs after him. So give him a listen. Again, this is hilarious, but give him a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
Next up, we have Mr. Doug Krinsky. Just a reminder, if you have any handout, Mr. Dorn in the back can take it, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Nope, no handout this time. I'm going to refer back to the June 24th board meeting at approximately 12 minutes, 34 seconds into the video. It was mentioned that kids that get transportation to schools like St. Paul's, Oakstone, Central College Church, All the Children of the World, Northside Christian, and other private and charter schools, that those expenses, on the top of other expenses that go along with those kids, are an, quote, administrative burden, unquote, on the district to administer that funding for those programs. Those kids and their parents are legally choosing to send their kids out of the district for many reasons. For the 7 of you to point out these kids and make examples of them is offensive to those families and kids. It's the law. Stop complaining and picking on these kids. Any expense in this district could be considered a burden, but for the 7 of you to orchestrate that conversation about these kids and their families is unreal. Especially kids on IEPs that have special needs. Shame on all of you. Why don't you talk about the largest expense in this district as a burden, the teachers' salaries? Because it would be ludicrous to pick on those teachers. How about give these students and their families the same respect? I will be voting no on this levy, and I hope everyone in this district joins me, especially the St. Paul's, Oakstone, Central College families, and all other administrative burdens in this district. Redo the projections, transfer back the $30 million, look for cost-cutting saving measures, and stop asking for more money of the taxpayers. Also, what is the board policy about campaign materials in district buildings, on district property, and/or employees? What is the policy about employees working on the campaign while on the clock and being paid? And let's keep this civil and ask your side not to steal signs, destroy yard signs, etc., etc. It happened to me and several other people that were on the no side. Let's try and be civil about this if we can. I won't get that crazy on this, but anyway. The other thing I do want to point out is you may wonder what organizations have I touched base with and some of my friends. Believe me, we've touched base with all of them. So there's quite a consortium of folks that are not going to be happy about this levy and will be working diligently to defeat it. I've also contacted every state rep and every state senator that covers this district about this levy, as well as many friends that live in the district. I have to say that in talking to most of the state reps, either offices or reps and senators, there's a lot of questions about what's going on in this district. And it's not the first time, and it won't be the last time. So I'll tell you this, there's more to come, and I'll see you at the booth in November. Thank you.
It's perfect. He's got him. He's got him dead to rights. And he's got him scared. And he should have him scared. They're lying. They're cooking the books. They're favoring each other. The nepotism that exists in that district is next level because nepotism is rampant in the entire American K12 school system. From one side of the country to the other, doesn't matter. And they all believe the COVID lie. And they all took all that money and whatever they didn't spend on new roofs, new windows, new chairs, because of COVID, because that all prevents COVID. What they didn't spend, they had to give back. And as you've heard me say, and it's a fact, which they'll never bring it up because, again, as awake as that guy is, he's not as awake as I would like him to be. But the entire COVID lie and the ESSER funds and the CARES Act money was the largest American K-12 school district nationwide money laundering operation that's ever existed in American K-12 education and university education history. And they don't know that. I've been through it time and time again on this show as to why. Because if everybody's breaking the law, then no law is being broken. Money laundering is money laundering any way you slice it. And this is what happens when these people believe lies. You're going to get drug around by the back of the neck like a dirty dog every single time and not know what decision you're making, thinking you're making a good one, when in fact you're not. They're being manipulated too. I mean, I pity these people. I truly do. They have no idea what the hell is going on. Which now leads me to this. And again, there were lots of comments regarding this LifeWise program that exists in the district where, again, allegedly they send children to particular buildings. They have them put on LifeWise t-shirts. But if the students themselves aren't participating in the LifeWise program, they still have to go. But they just don't wear the t-shirt. And they sit off to the side or whatever it is that they do, or they still participate, but they're not given a t-shirt. So, I don't know. They're excluded or whatever it is. But before I play this one woman's comment, and again, there were lots of comments about it, and it was all melodramatic bullshit. But either way, these are godless human beings, these individuals who come up to the lectern and speak. They're disgusting. And I'm not defending the program because I don't know anything about the program. If they teach the Bible and they teach the word of Jesus Christ, great. But you have to understand the people criticizing that are godless monsters. So with all of that said, the bigger issue here is that they're focusing on feelings and not facts. They want the LifeWise program gone. But in the middle of doing all of that, they're exposing themselves for being godless monsters and not having an open mind about anything. They're claiming to be open-minded and they're claiming to be diverse, equitable, and inclusive, but clearly they aren't. And this, again, is what happens when you give a liberal a certain amount of rope. They'll take more than enough to hang themselves. And then they'll just do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And they don't understand that they would do well to just keep their mouths shut. because they just embarrass themselves and show the hypocrisy of themselves to the entire crowd. So give this whack job a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Up next, we have Miss Sarah McCarty. Just a reminder, 5 minutes. Welcome.
All right. My name is Sarah McCarty. I live at 404 Delaware Drive. I want to start by saying good evening, and I'm also here today to express some concerns about the presence of LifeWise Academy in Westerville City Schools. To provide some context, my daughter is an incoming 5th grader at Hanby Elementary, and she's attended Hanby since she was in 1st grade. When my wife and I heard about LifeWise pulling students from our daughter's school, which I'd like to point out that we did learn about from literature sent home in a folder of hers at the beginning of the year. And so that literature was distributed during school hours by district employees. We looked into the program and quickly gleaned some unsavory facts. LifeWise has a clearly stated anti-LGBTQIA policy. Their stance on homosexuality is communicated explicitly in their literature. It is always unacceptable, and therefore queer relationships do not constitute a marriage or a family. And since LifeWise Academy does not acknowledge my marriage or my family as real, it was an easy decision not to opt in. And this is the solution that proponents of LifeWise always provide. If you don't want your child to go, don't sign them up. It's simple enough, right? Unfortunately, that's not how living in community with each other works. On days that students attend LifeWise Academy, they wear red shirts, LifeWise shirts. These shirts provide a visual cue to all students about who is in the group and who is not. Having kids wear jerseys creates teams. My daughter has explained that on numerous occasions, she has been confronted by peers in LifeWise. She's been asked to explain why she does not attend and pressed about if she believes in Christ, in God, in religion. My daughter has said that these interactions have come sometimes, and at best, from a place of grave concern for her. And at other times, the worse, from a place of condescending superiority. It has caused her great discomfort over the last few years to have to answer such personal questions to a group of children that stand firm in knowing that their religious views are validated. And it makes sense why they would think that their views are correct. Allowing them to leave school and receive this instruction during the day inextricably binds the district to what they learn at LifeWise. All of this seems incredibly counterproductive for a school district that otherwise is so clearly committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, student safety, and well-being. And I want to end my time here with a final observation that really strikes me as quite telling about LifeWise Academy's true goals. And this requires me to share a bit about myself. I've lived in Westerville my entire life. I attended Amherst, then Heritage, graduated from North in 2012. I have a bachelor's degree in English and a master's degree in education from The Ohio State University. I'm a high school English teacher teaching honors 9th grade English and AP language and composition at a neighboring school district. My wife, too, is an intervention specialist in a nearby district as well. We could not be facilitators at LifeWise, even though we are certified teachers, because we are married to one another. And I think that fact alone makes it clear how much LifeWise Academy is not focused on religion alone, but rather something far more political and far more sinister. I implore you to take a page out of Gehanna's playbook, a neighboring district, and not allow LifeWise to continue to contribute to the harassment and bullying of students, some of our most vulnerable here in Westerville City Schools. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Of course, the round of applause at the end for that whack job, but not the guy who drops the truth about the finances and the lying and the deception and the whole thing. I mean, they were only applauding each other because they're do-gooders and that's what they do. But you heard her comments right there. What she said was, and what she was describing is just pure hypocrisy. She doesn't even hear herself talk. She doesn't even hear herself talk. Now, she cleaned up a few things that I got confused at the beginning. If you opt your student out, then your student doesn't have to go. But she doesn't like the fact that students who do go are all dressed the same and wearing the same shirt, that's somehow offensive to her. And that it's like wearing a jersey. Well, how is that any different than individuals who play sports wearing a jersey on the days when they have a game? I mean, that's a common thing within the American school system, is it not? So is that offensive to her daughter because she doesn't play football? Or because she's not a cheerleader? Not to mention, I don't think her daughter actually said the words condescending superiority. You have to be kidding me. Clearly my daughter believes that this is condescending and superior and blah, blah, blah. No, she never said that. She never said that. You and your whack job wife said that, and no one cares about your credentials either. That doesn't justify anything because that's sophomoric. No one cares. Your credentials are irrelevant. The reason that you couldn't be a coach or an advisor for LifeWise is because you're not a Christian. It's not because you're gay and you're stupid. It's because you're not a Christian. That's why. You just admitted it. You openly admitted it. And just because individuals ask other students why they aren't participating in a particular thing doesn't mean they're being bullied. You take it as that because you're filled with feelings and not facts. The reason that your daughter is confused is because she's confused, because her family is confusing. She has no father. That's why. She has two mommies, which are brainwashing her into believing that everything that she hears that goes against something that she either doesn't know or doesn't understand, or is the opposite of what her mommies have told her, is bullying. And that's not true. Your daughter's going to grow up just as confused as you are because that's what happens. It's sad. These very godless monsters are the people who need God, but they don't know that. And let's face it, no one's really gay. Are they? They're not really gay. They're just lazy. They never had an individual of like mind who is the opposite sex show them attention. Or they were abused and somehow they're now taking it out on the opposite sex. Or they've believed the demonic left-wing agenda set up by the Jewish lobby that they don't need men in their lives and they can accomplish all they want to accomplish by just achieving on their own and surrounding themselves with like-minded same-sexed individuals. They're not really gay. They're just pretending. That's all. And it's sad because they're going to spread that onto their daughter, and God knows who gave birth to it, and God knows who the real father is or where they even got the child. So, yeah. It's gross and it's stupid. And speaking of gross and stupid, I have another one. One more piece of audio. This was perfect. And again, this will be the last piece of audio because I think that this really exemplifies the much larger picture too, which is we need government, so saith the slave class. The slaves always think they need government. And this parent, this mother, who is married to a man, allegedly, is going to show up and describe her daughter's existence within this school district and how things are not as easy for her and them as they wish that they were. And this is the way that this is, and government needs to do what we want. Because only a slave to government would beg government to fix the problem that government creates that the parent allows. And here's what else you're going to hear from this parent, which is beyond disgusting and should be insulting to everyone. And I mean everybody. In a roundabout way. Not even a roundabout. It's pretty direct without actually saying it outright. She openly states that she is more interested in her own job, in her own paycheck and her own lifestyle as a working mother along with her working husband than she is being a parent to her daughter or children. That she's more interested in that. Because if this doesn't happen, then I would have to take my child out of school, and I can't do that because I would have to quit my job and we wouldn't have the income and that would be hard for us and blah, blah, blah. Therefore, putting all of the burden on her child instead of recognizing that you shouldn't do that as a parent. That you as the parent are supposed to be the number one teacher always, not government. So give this horrible parent a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you. Good evening, President Meyer, Superintendent Hamburg, and members of the board. My name is Catherine Papai McMillan, and I'd like to speak with you about Westerville's policy on half-day and all-day kindergarten. The current policy of having half-day kindergarten as a default is a burden on many families. I have 3 children in the district. One is in middle school, one attends Point View as a second grader, and I wanted my third child, who is starting kindergarten this year, to also attend Point View with her older brother. Unfortunately, she is unable to do so because she did not receive a lottery spot into full-day kindergarten at Point View. This is causing my family a tremendous amount of stress this summer, as we've discovered that every daycare that we called was unable to bus my daughter to Point View for a half day of kindergarten. Now, there may be some daycare that we didn't find that my husband was unable to contact, but we spent days trying to find a place for my daughter to go. We both work full-time outside of the home. We have no option but to have our children in daycare or all day at school unless one of us were to quit our job or to find a work from home job that was considerably less well paying or perhaps not even in the field that we are currently working in. Times have changed. It is no longer the case that most families have a stay-at-home parent. In most families, both caregivers work full-time outside of the home, or there is only a single caregiver in the home. I do not know of a comparable district in the area that defaults to half-day kindergarten besides Olentangy. The curricular standards have also changed. Kindergartners are expected to do much more when they finish kindergarten than they used to. To be able to do all that is expected of them, all children should have access to all-day kindergarten as a default. In addition, $3,000 to pay for tuition is a tremendous amount of money for any family. I understand that there's assistance available for families, but even for a solidly middle-class family like mine, $3,000 is a lot of money. On top of that, I must also pay for before and after school childcare. Our plan was to have our middle schooler pick up our 2 younger children from Point View and walk them home, where he is more than capable of attending to them until I return from work. That is no longer an option because he cannot walk to 2 different elementary schools to pick up his siblings. As a result of the district policy, then, I am forced to pay for after-school care that I was not originally budgeting for. I understand that I am speaking on this from a very personal viewpoint, but I think that there are probably many families in the same boat that my family is in. My daughter is very upset about attending Charrington after being told that she was going to attend Point View with her brother. She's familiar with Point View. Her brothers have both gone there, and she's attended many events there. Her brothers love Point View, and they've hyped it up for her. Not attending Point View is very sad for her. I would encourage this board to consider adopting a new policy that has all-day kindergarten as the default for students rather than half-day kindergarten. I think this will address the changing times and the needs of families, as well as making it more equitable for all students in the district. Students should be able to attend their home schools with their older siblings. Parents should know that their children are receiving the full complement of learning services through an all-day kindergarten program so that their children can achieve a standard set up for them, especially the 3rd grade reading guarantee. As an educator myself, I know the weight and demands of the state report card and the perception of the district that relies on those ratings. While I know that all-day kindergarten as the default would add financial burden to the district, I have come to know that this is an innovative and creative district that's committed to high education for all students. Therefore, I am confident that this board could find a workable solution. I think a great starting point might be a survey to all Westerville families. I would love to know if there are other solutions that you all have been investigating that I am unaware of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
She seems nice. Good God. Now I'm going to make a little side comment here. I would venture to guess that the suicide rate among husbands who are married to women like that has got to be through the roof. I mean, that's That's a certain kind of special right there. I mean, she's reproduced. Someone slept with her at least 3 times. That's amazing. You know, he's at home probably just shaking his head like, my God, what have I got myself into? What in the hell have I got myself into? Or he's just like, yeah, you get him, hun. That's what needs to happen. Notice how it's all women who speak at these meetings defending their children. You know, sucking up to government and licking government boots and then asking government for more. Thank you, sir, may I have another? Thank you, sir, may I have another? But it's never the fathers or the husbands. And if it is, they're always gay. Is anybody else picking up on this? It's amazing. And as she said, this is very personal to me, and I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. My youngest daughter isn't, she just can't go to the same school that her brothers went to, and that's all she's heard of, and she wants full-day kindergarten and blah, blah, blah. We never had full-day kindergarten growing up. I turned out just fine. Yeah, I got a couple of screws loose probably, but I'm okay. She's the one who's not well. And now I have to pay $3,000 for daycare. And that's apparently what it costs, unless my husband didn't do what he was supposed to do. And he's at home, cutting himself, slitting his wrists and whatever else. I mean, my God. They don't even hear themselves talk. Like I've said before a million times, they're not even hearing themselves. They're so brainwashed. They don't even hear themselves. She's more addicted to her lifestyle than she is just doing the right thing for her kids. If her middle school age son is able to walk her elementary school age kids home, then he's old enough to help teach his siblings. If he's in middle school, he's literate. She doesn't understand that this is exactly what used to happen with her own ancestors not a few generations ago. That's how they taught one another. That they didn't rely on government and then beg government for more of the thing that's causing the problem, and then ask government to fix, rather, the thing that they caused in the first place. And if she's spending $3,000 a year for daycare or after-school care for her daughter, who was promised to go to a school but didn't make it into the lottery system because I wanted my kid to receive full daycare from government for full-day kindergarten, which is what that is, it's daycare, that she could take that $3,000 for after-school daycare and she could buy all the Abeka materials that she wants for all 3 of her kids and have money left over. But these people have no idea the time and money that they're wasting begging government as they feed their kids to the government indoctrination system. Because again, and it's 100% true, and I saw a cartoon meme of it just the other day, it's not education, it's indoctrination. Because if it was education, everybody would be receiving an education on how you're being abused and lied to by government. So government has to teach you the opposite, to keep you enslaved, to then get you back to a school board meeting, to walk up to the lectern and beg government for more. Fix my problem, government, that you created, even though I'm the one perpetuating the problem. It's beyond pathetic. And it's sad, because her children are being brainwashed. Because the parents aren't bright enough to understand who the real enemy is. It's disgusting. Now, I have to go back in time just very quickly. The male speaker that you heard, and the second part of his talk that he gave, where he said, don't worry, I'll see you in November, when it came to the levies, okay? The base dude. He spoke right before that woman that you just heard. That woman was the last speaker. The next person you're going to hear now is the board. So after the public comments, as it's sometimes typical in these school board meetings, the school board one at a time and all the board members will go around the horn and they'll all give their 2 cents on everything that they've heard. And basically, again, in full-blown panic mode. They'll either take a firm stance on something or against something that they heard, or they'll support something else that they also heard from the public. Now, as you might imagine, they don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to the finances. Not a leg. So they support the LifeWise thing and say, well, we're going to look into that and we're going to look into that. That's what they all say, by and large. But the first school board member to speak is directly addressing the guy and what he said. And her last name is Valentine, a Mrs. Valentine. She's the newest school board member to the district as of last November. And she's relatively quiet and doesn't say a whole lot. This is the loudest I've ever heard her get. And this should prove to people that their backs are against a wall. And it's not just this district. It's all of them across the nation. They're all feeling this now. They're in the Star Wars trash compactor, and it's just coming at them from both sides. And they're all yelling at each other and screaming and shouting. But it's also crushing them from the ground and the ceiling right toward the middle also. There's no escape. R2-D2 isn't going to be able to save them from this one. It's not going to happen. But she directly addresses the guy, and the guy doesn't take it. He barks back at her, which is hilarious, which only makes her more angry, which is hilarious. I love this. So give her comments a listen here in 3, 2, 1.
I will kick things off for board comments. First of all, thank you to all of you who did come to speak this evening. This is why these meetings are public, so that folks can come and voice their concerns and suggestions. So thank you for all of those of you who spoke. There was a lot said tonight from all of the various folks who came to provide public comment. And I think for me personally, it's going to be, I will need to digest some of this and maybe come back at the next board meeting and have some additional commentary. We have heard concerns about the LifeWise Academy. That is not something that is necessarily new to me personally. I have heard about that. We will have to discuss further, I think, about what that means going forward. As for the levy being on the ballot, I do want to say that as a parent with a child who is on an IEP, it feels very attacking to me personally that you are saying that I don't understand. That I don't understand what those other families are going through. Because I have a child who was on an IEP, K-5. He is on the autism spectrum, and there are certain needs that he has that were different than some of his classmates. It is absolutely every parent's choice as to where to send their children. That is absolutely a choice that every parent is given. But to expect the public school system to pay and administrate where those children go and pay for the transportation and whatnot, that is an extra thing that the district has to do that they wouldn't otherwise have to do if the child was attending the public school. And I get it. There are circumstances where we cannot necessarily accommodate for children who have a lot of special needs. I get that. That is why there's an autism scholarship program. That's fantastic. But for a lot of other parents, they choose other private entities for very different reasons, and that is their choice. But don't look to the public school district to pay for your choice, because we are offering quality public education here within the Westerville City School District, and you may choose to go outside that district, and that is your choice, and have at it. But we are providing education. You are simply choosing to go elsewhere.
That's the law.
I am speaking now. You had your time. You had your time to speak.
Make sure you speak facts.
And while it is the law, that doesn't mean the law is accurate. We have plenty of laws on the books that are. I would love to advocate to change it, and I have run twice to try to be a state legislator to change this. They do not listen. And this is why we have an amendment on the ballot to end gerrymandering here in this state, because those folks need to be accountable, and they're not accountable. It is wasted breath going down to that state house and trying to convince some of our state legislators that public education is important and they need to give money to it. We are sitting on $1 billion rainy day fund. When is it raining enough that that money should be spent on things that matter, like our kids? That is what drives me nuts about the state legislature.
Not advocating hard enough then, because it's not
Sir, sir.
You have had
Sir.
your time to speak.
This
Please stop. Correct. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows we are not anti-private school. We are not anti any other school. Parents have those choices, but it does come back to us as the public school system to have to take on these additional costs, these additional efforts. And meanwhile, the state legislature continues to cut our funding, additional mandates, less funding. The funds have to come from somewhere. It was mentioned that we should be coming up with cost-saving measures. I implore you to talk to our facilities folks. We are using, high-efficiency light bulbs. We've had HVAC renovations so that they run more efficiently. The lights are off when nobody's in the buildings. These are things that have been implemented, small things that can have big impacts. Where I don't think we should be, cutting costs is saying, well, let's just not have intervention specialists because that's extra. We don't need that. Or, we shouldn't have art. Art's not core curriculum. Who needs art? Those aren't the types of things that we should be doing in order to compete with our neighboring districts so that people want to come here. They want to live here. They want to send their children here. That's just the reality of it. So I have a lot of thoughts on those things. I just wanted to make sure that folks know that it's not, because we are anti other schools. It is simply a fact of how things work when it comes to the public education piece of things. And if you feel like advocating to your state legislators, go for it. I have not found it particularly successful.
Okay, first of all, what I edited out at the beginning of that was there was approximately, I want to say 60 seconds of just dead air where all of the women on the board are looking at each other to see who's going to speak first. So the board president says, okay, now it's time for board comments. Who would like to speak first? And they're all looking at each other because they all have something to say, but no one's standing up first and saying, okay, I'll speak first. I mean, they're all just trying to pass the buck. This just proves that they're all cowards. They don't know what they're doing. No one wants to take a stand. And that's not what Miss Valentine did there either. She made herself look like the hypocrite that she is. What the guy stated about all of them criticizing those who don't attend Westerville schools is accurate. They've done that before in numerous meetings. Remember, this is the same school district that put out a letter disagreeing with the Ohio House legislature for overriding Mike DeWine's veto that would have put and placed transgenders, so to speak, in whatever bathroom and sport they wanted to play in. That if any guy who pretends to be a girl wants to play in a girl's sport and vice versa, then they get to. DeWine, of course, didn't like that, and the House said, F you, DeWine. We don't want trannies playing in whatever sport they want because that's ridiculous, and then the House overrode it. This was the school district that wrote an entire letter in support of the whole LGBTQ alphabet soup agenda. And then, of course, in every single board meeting, they always complain, and always have, about the amount of money that the state doesn't have for public schools because more and more charter schools are popping up, more private schools are popping up, and more people are homeschooling and home learning. So yes, they do advocate for public school, but you can't advocate for public school and like the other options that exist and advocate for those either. I mean, the divisive lines have been drawn in the sand here. I mean, I'll even go so far as to say it, and I've said it on the show, I'm not a fan of charter schools or private schools either. They can be equally as bad as public schools, if not worse. And it's not because they're not held accountable by the state and they don't have to follow the same parameters that the state does and blah, blah, blah. It means that they're filled with the same criminals that exist in the public school realm as well. Home learning in a morally sound, God-filled environment is the only way to go now. It really is the pinnacle and the best way to grow up these days, if it hasn't always been the case, and let's face it, it always has been the case, and still is today. But more people are waking up to that fact, and more people are leaving these school districts as a result, and finding better things, and saying to themselves, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't do this sooner. But for her to justify her stance by saying, well, there's no way that I would criticize other options for other people because my kid's autistic. That's ridiculous. But that's the mind frame of the liberal. That's how brainwashed they are. Liberalism is quite literally a disorder. It is a disorder. She doesn't hear what she's saying. And then, of course, she forecloses on saying, well, go ahead and try to try to legislate at the state level all you want, or advocate at the state level for change all you want, but they're not going to listen to you and they don't care. Because I've tried and I've even run for those offices and I didn't win. Well, it's obvious why you didn't win. You're a whack job. That's number one. Number two, advocating at the state level, you're fighting a larger monster than you can possibly imagine. But what these legislators, in particular conservative ones, are finding is it's far more profitable and logical and ethical to put the money, government money, back in the hands of parents and families, which, let's face it, is their money to begin with. So yes, school choice should exist for everybody all of the time. But the real reason she's angry is not just because of quote-unquote school choice, it's because of this. And this comes from Cleveland.com. It was titled, Private School Vouchers. It says, scholarships last school year cost Ohio $966.2 million and counting. Which means that's the money that public schools in Ohio are losing and lost in just 1 year. That number will increase dramatically. It says vouchers for private school tuition, which the legislature expanded to include all families regardless of income, have cost taxpayers $966.2 million so far last school year. It says the number isn't final. It says some families didn't apply until the last several days of the fiscal year that ended on June 30th of this year. And those applications are still being processed, said Lacey Snoke, a spokeswoman for the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. Final numbers won't be available until October, and then the article cuts off. It's absolutely wonderful. It's fantastic. Because this is the way it's supposed to be. But only the brainwashed believe that the way that it is now and the way it's been is the way it's supposed to be, and it's not. This also shows a massive shortcoming in, again, the overall subject of teaching education to people. These people claim to be educators. They claim to have either worked in the education business or whatever, and they know nothing about the history of American education. All they know is 1960s to right now. They know nothing about anything before the 1960s. Not a clue. Certainly not pre-1900. They haven't learned about it. They're completely unaware. And they don't bother looking it up either, which of course that falls on them. That makes them look equally as stupid. Now the next two school board members who speak, which by the way, the one who's in my Deadpool, Jennifer Altman, who coughs all the time, she wasn't even there. Shocking, I know. Seems like a board meeting you'd want to go to at the beginning of a school year, but she was absent. Probably because she has VADES. Just saying. Anyway, with that aside, the next thing that happened is the board members started to go around the horn, and they all basically said the same thing. They said, we're aware of the LifeWise thing, we're going to look into it, we're going to reevaluate it, and that's the way that it is. They didn't bother commenting on what the guy said. They didn't even address his comments. They mentioned the LifeWise thing very quickly, and then they go into gaslighting mode. And they went, well, I'm going to end on a positive note. I think it's absolutely fantastic of everything that's going on in this district and the unity that exists and how we're all in this together and we're all having a great time. And I've just been to one event after another, and it's nice to see all the unity and everybody's in this together and everybody's in this together. At least 2 of them said that. It was beyond pathetic, and it couldn't be further from the truth. They're more divisive now than ever before. They're more divided now than ever before because once you wake up, you don't go back to sleep. It's amazing. And the last thing was, of course, Nancy Nestor Baker resigning. I told myself I wasn't going to cry, she said. As soon as she started speaking, I instantly knew she was going to resign. I instantly knew it. In fact, I'm going to play her audio. I shouldn't, but I'm going to play her audio, and then I'm going to come back with this article that describes probably why she's really leaving. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
There's a lot that I could say, and there's a lot that I probably will be saying in coming days to any number of you. I'm going in a different direction with my comments this evening. A little different, something that I want to tell you, something that I've been giving a great deal of thought to for some time now. This month marks my 25th year as a Westerville board member. I was initially appointed in August of 1991. I was elected and then served through December of 2005. I then came back to the board in January of 2014. How quickly 25 years at this table have passed. Someone said to me recently that this Westerville City Schools is truly a special place. It is. Whether we agree on everything, whether we disagree on a number of things, it is a special place. It's our people of all ages and all roles. It's our community. It's our shared reasons for doing what we do that remain at the heart of who we are. Westerville City Schools is indeed where we belong, and we are indeed the Ville. Over the past couple years, my life has changed a great deal. My business and professional demands have grown exponentially and will continue to do so. This concerns me a great deal as I consider my board service and what I think truly good board service means. So I've given it a lot of thought. And even though, actually, because I love this place and I love the great work that we do here, I have decided that this 25th anniversary, oh boy, I told you I'd cry. It's time for me to retire from public service. So I will. My retirement will be effective at the end of the day, August 31st, 2024. I thank you all.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got to do something here real quick. I want to go back to a piece of audio I didn't play, which was the school board member before the one that just resigned, which, by the way, that was pathetic. I told myself I wasn't going to cry. That's so sad. You haven't served the public. You've destroyed the district by not leaving and being a lifer. You just proved that that's exactly what happens when you're a lifer. You wreck everything, and lifers wreck things. So there's that. The board member before her is the person that I refer to as the school marm. Her last name is Davidson. She's absolutely nuts. She's been on the board since 2020, if memory serves. And she's lost her mind. She was looking at the guy who spoke earlier in the meeting and was dropping red pills like nobody's business. And she goes, and this was her justification. She goes, when it comes to school levies, she says, you're either for them or you're against them, and people don't change their minds. And that's just the way that it is. So there's no change in that. And then she looks right at him and she says, and I've seen your name in my email inbox all of the time. So I know that you're always emailing, and that's fine. And then she moves on and she goes, but we're all in this together, and we need to all be together, and we need to be united because that's where we need to be. And we have some problems, but we're looking into them and we're fixing them and blah, blah, blah. It's incredible. Again, the lack of awareness among these people. They are not smart. They're not smart. They hold these positions because they think that it gives them some level of clout and importance. Hence why Nestor Baker's been around for 25 years. Only a person holds on to an unpaid position like that for 25 years because they think they're making some difference. Oh, they're making a difference, all right. They're wrecking things and making them bankrupt, which is exactly what she's done. And now she's getting out before the shit hits the fan, so she thinks. Except the shit's already hit the fan. This was from NBC. I'm sorry. Yeah, their local NBC affiliate. Westerville School Board resigns over a year before term ends. After 25 years of service, Westerville School Board members retiring this month over a year before her term was set to end amid an ongoing ethics investigation. Nancy Nestor Baker announced her retirement Tuesday night at a board meeting, which she said that will take effect August 31st. Board President Christy Myers said the board will soon publicize an application process for those hoping to fill the rest of Nestor Baker's term, which was supposed to end December 31st of 2025. Now, my understanding is in the state of Ohio, you fill the position temporarily until they have time to basically fill out another ballot for the November ballot, and then individuals run, and then what have you. So it sounds like there's going to be some kind of an elimination process here, kind of like what was done in Brockton, Massachusetts, if you recall that fiasco, and what went on up there with picking a new board member who resigned in the middle of their term. It sounds like the same kind of thing is happening here. So they'll pick another do-gooder, rather. They'll pick somebody who agrees with them. They'll all vote, and then that will be the way that is. And then next November, not this coming, but the following, that's when that individual will have to either formally run or resign beforehand, and then a full-time position will take over. It's beyond pathetic. So here's what it says. It says, although she said it is unrelated when speaking with this news outlet, Nancy Nestor Baker said, it says the investigation could still affect her and could result in felony charges. In August of 2023, Nestor Baker had conduct brought before the Ohio Ethics Commission after it was determined that she voted on 3 measures that concerned her daughter, Kaylee Baker. Baker has been with Westerville School since 2007 and is currently the principal of Hanby Elementary, which was the elementary school that was mentioned earlier in the comments that, again, ships the kids out to that LifeWise program. These people are finished. They're all finished. They have no idea what they've done with the COVID lie. They don't have a clue. Not a clue. And I love it. I love watching the collapse. I love watching them try to, plug all the holes in the dam with chewing gum as much as humanly possible. It's absolutely amazing. There's nothing that they can do, and this is happening on their watch. And it happened before their time, and they fell for it, and it's just continuing to happen. So it's a beautiful thing. I have more to cover here. I know this has been a long episode, but hang on for just a minute. I have a jab-related story. And then I have a couple of jab-related news things, and then I'll wrap it up here. This story comes from, again, AJ Gochick, and this has to do with another little doctor's office visit regarding his mother. His mother, bless her heart, has late-stage dementia, but otherwise is in good physical health. And here's the story he sent me regarding his interaction with these doctors and nurses in this place where he took his mother to get a checkup, essentially. He said the following, quote, "Sean, here's a recap of the doctor's appointment I had with my mom. By the way, if you believe the COVID lie, give this a listen. And if you don't, definitely give this a listen. He said the following. He said, quote, "Younger Asian female doctor, not my mom's regular doctor, walks in with loose-fitting medical mask, probably because her face is small. I don't make eye contact, but I decide to wait until the end to bring up the mask. Didn't care or listen to what she had to say. I know my mom's condition. She has late-stage dementia, but is otherwise fine and pain-free. I looked very disinterested and unfriendly the whole time. The one time I responded was when she said my mom is due for shingles, DTaP, and other vaccines, and I said, we don't believe in that stuff. She said, okay. She signs the form that my mom's care home needed, hands it back to me, and as she's about to leave, I start giving it to her. AJ said, quote, I was expecting to see a face. Not that thing, unquote. She's stunned, he said. He said, quote, I remember the days doctors would treat the sickest patients, dozens per day, without a mask, and they wouldn't get sick. They have immune systems, unquote. He's saying all of this to her face. I love it. He says she's listening and getting more uncomfortable. He then says, do you not have an immune system? She looks back apparently and says, it's my choice. Then I go into the usual, quote, so in 2020 and 2021, when they didn't give you a choice, did you complain? I didn't think so, unquote. He said she asks me if I want to speak to the office manager. He says, I said I already did. Last time I was here, useless. By this time, the nurses, some in masks, are looking over and walking by. I'm pretty loud by this point. Then I tell her how in almost 5 years now she hasn't learned that masks are useless and harmful. It is that fraudulent Bangladesh study. I ask her now, did you know that out of 365,000 participants in that study, which was poorly designed, at the end of it, they found 90 in mask-wearing group tested positive and 106 in the non-masking wearing group tested positive. And how did the fake scientists report it? That there is no more debate. It's settled. Masks work because of 15% difference. He said, no. They report relative difference rather than absolute difference. They were funded by Gates Foundation and had agenda. The difference was not statistically significant. Imagine running that study with 1 billion people. 1 from mask-wearing tests positive, 2 from maskless group test positive. Leaving aside the tests themselves are fraudulent, those fake scientists would report results as 100% difference. They are liars. Masks are useless. He goes on and says, by this point, she wanted to leave in all honesty, or wants to leave in all honesty, was trying to be polite, but she said, quote, I don't believe this has anything to do with the medical physical, and tries to leave. I respond, you asked me if my mom has an advance directive and other legal document. I don't see how that was part of the physical. He then went on and said, so I keep giving it to her, and then I ask her, quote, do you have children? She nervously says no, and some excuse. Then I pounce on her more. You're not invested in future generations or this country. You're okay if it all burns down because people like you go along with anything. And Fauci and the public health directors laughed at people like you. It's on video and in their emails. How they made you mask to your table in restaurants and to the bathroom, but not while eating at table. He said, near the end, I told the doctor, the public doesn't trust doctors anymore since 2020. They know what you did during so-called COVID. The trust is at the lowest levels ever. You probably know that. He went on and he said, forgot to mention. He said, here we go. He said, when I asked her why she didn't mask before 2020, she hesitatingly said that she did. I shot right back, no, you didn't. And then she said, I didn't work here before 2020. That's not responsive to my statement, he said. He goes on and says, before leaving, I said there is no logic to your masking. You can get easily infected through the eyes, ears, abrasions in skin. Then she asked if I wanted to speak to supervisor again. We finally left. Everyone could hear me. He said a masked nurse walked us out. And when I started giving it to her, she said, quote, I know, and pulled down her mask. And I'm telling her to remove it completely. And I said, look at all the normal front desk workers who are maskless, and you're still living in 2020. She smiled. I almost got the feeling she wanted me to lecture her after I gave it to the doctor so she could have an excuse to not wear it. That was a head scratcher, unquote. And then he later said I could have just said that there was no COVID and viruses are not real and left it at that, but I engaged her using more virology, which is a fake science, and watched her try to squirm out of it, unquote. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. It's absolutely beautiful. Now the tables have turned here. The tables have turned. Their backs are now against the wall. In every stinking profession. It does not matter. When you fall for these seas of lies, you're going to drown in it, time and time again. And the nurse who approached him out in the parking lot, I mean, she's probably relatively based to some extent, and probably knows that all of it's a lie and all of it's fake, even though she may or may not be jabbed. But by still wearing the mask, and by still going along with the lie, she's perpetuating the problem. And as I've said before here, and you know this, we're being physically tormented because we're having to watch them too. We're having to watch their brainwashing. We're having to watch them fall for this lie. That's not solving the problem. That's not solving anything. That's perpetuating the enemy's opportunity to bring back more lies, which is exactly what they're doing now with monkeypox. Same thing. Nice transition, by the way. Just as a quick reminder, because I've already written Substacks about this, I've brought it up on the show numerous times. The COVID shots are sexually transmitted. Not just via electromagnetism and close proximity, which is proven beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's sexually transmitted, and so are the symptoms that come with the COVID bioweapons. One of those symptoms happens to be shingles-like lesions that appear on the body, which again happen to appear in or around the orifices of a human being, certainly after physical sexual contact from an individual who is COVID jabbed or has taken the monkeypox or mpox, because monkey's too offensive, the mpox vaccine, which no one should take because it's poison, and anybody who's taken the flu shots at this point, why not? Or any other shot, certainly the hepatitis B shots, same thing. That's why the entire monkeypox story rolled out in 2022, because the symptoms had already set in. And people were complaining. And then doctors were going, we're seeing the same kinds of symptoms. We're seeing them among the gays, and we're seeing them among kids and dogs. And for some reason, kids and dogs are getting it, and they happen to know these gay men. What could possibly cause that transmission? And then the story went out of the news, because we know what causes that transmission. It's sexual transmission from one party to the next. Again, they're rolling out a monkeypox, quote-unquote, vaccine for 2 to 12-year-olds called Bavarian Nordic is the company, preparing for a clinical trial to assess the immunogenicity and safety of its monkeypox vaccine in children between the ages of 2 and 12 in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Uganda. It's only a matter of time, but it doesn't matter. It's the same poison from monkey kidney cells that exists in every shot in America. So that's why you're getting skin lesions. That's why you're sexually transmitting this back and forth. That's why it will show up, go away, and then come back. Because you have broken DNA. Because It's a biological weapon, the COVID shots, and it's sexually transmitted. There was also this headline, Cancer Society, it says, Gen X millennials at higher risk for 17 types of cancer. Interesting number 17. But even so, not a lie. It says exact cause is unknown, but doctors speculate lifestyle factors, quote unquote, may be to blame. At same time, cancer deaths have declined as treatment advances. That's not true either. Cancer deaths are through the roof. But if you listen to the Australian media, even though this is American media, if you listen to the Australian media, they would tell you that cancer deaths are on the rise, in particular among those below the age of, I think it was 45 years old, because of lifestyle choices. Specifically, not just lifestyle choices like in this article, but fast food. No, I'm not doubting that, but that's not the real reason. Fast food's been around a whole lot longer than COVID bioweapon shots that are killing people as soon as they take them. It's ridiculous. These people, again, the dots are on top of each other and they're not connecting them. We see what's going on here. They don't. There was also this one from last week, again having to do with at least 6 cancer doctors dying in a plane crash as they were set to give presentations at an oncology conference. And again, it shouldn't shock people that first of all, 7 out of 10 plane crashes are intentional hits. But they were set to apparently give presentations having to do with the COVID shots and how they're causing cancer. And turbo cancer specifically. Again, it shouldn't shock anybody because this is what happens. You tell the truth and you're set to give presentations on the truth. Certain outlets and certain individuals don't want that to be the case because they don't want their doctors in the room to hear the thing that you're saying that's truthful. They have to keep everybody in the dark. There was also this, and I'll end it on this one. This was the end of an abstract having to do with the COVID shots. Specifically, this peer-reviewed article, medical journal, came from the Pediatric Infectious Disease Journal. So for all you pediatricians out there, pay attention. This is hot off the presses as of July 30th anyway. It was titled, Delayed Induction of Non-Inflammatory SARS-CoV-2 Spike-Specific IgG4 Antibodies Detected 1 year after BNT162b2 vaccination in children, which is the Pfizer shot. The last sentence in this abstract, albeit small, is the dead giveaway. And here's what it said. The whole abstract is quite literally like 2 or 3 sentences. It says humoral immune responses after the Pfizer BNT162b2 vaccination are predominantly composed of immunoglobulin IgG1 and IgG3 subclass antibodies. As previously described, in adults, S1 specific and receptor binding domain specific IgG4 levels increase significantly 1 year after the second BNT162b2 vaccination in children 5 to 11 years of age. Translation on that first part of it, before the last sentence, your immune system is kicked into overdrive and doesn't turn off. Which means your DNA is broken and your body doesn't recognize what the hell's going on. The last sentence is the giveaway, and it's awful. It says, quote, understanding mRNA vaccine-specific IgG4 responses in all age groups is crucial as more mRNA vaccines will reach licensure in the coming years, unquote. That means they're telling you without telling you, but still telling you that mRNA is going to be in every shot going forward, whether you know it or not. And that's just the way it is. So stay away from all shots no matter what, because you're all going to eventually get the same poison. in all of them. This is their only move. This is the only thing that they can do now. There's going to be more coercion, yes. There's going to be more, if you don't get these shots, you won't get paid. If you don't get these shots, you won't get in here, you won't get in there, and blah, blah, blah. You have to be a shot-free human, a shot-free couple, a shot-free family. This is the way it has to be now. There's no other way to put it. Again, the slaughter is going to take place whether people recognize it or not, whether they believe in it or not, whether they know it's happening or not. And it's continuing to happen. But for the people who keep injecting themselves, this is your future. This is what is coming. Because it's already here. And now they're publishing the admission to it. They're telling you that this is what is going to be the case. This is what is coming. So thanks for listening. Again, I know it was a long one. Take your time with it, clearly. But it's the collapse, ladies and gentlemen. It's the collapse of the medical industry, and we're watching them panic and kick into overdrive. It's the collapse of the American K12 industry, and we're seeing them panic and kick their anger into overdrive and 1,000 other things. They can't gaslight people anymore. It's not working. And I kind of like it to some extent. Not the death, of course. I'm not a fan of that. But the panic and the collapse of these government systems. It's inevitable they're going to have collateral damage. And they're going to. And they do. And they are. But stand back and govern yourselves. And stay away from these people. And you might make it. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I'll catch you on Wednesday. Thanks for listening again. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.